Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Port Phillip City Council. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continued relationship to this land. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid style and is streamed via Council's webcast page and Facebook Live. Streams and recordings of Council meetings are copyrighted and cannot be altered, reproduced, or republished without the permission of Council. If we experience any technical difficulties this evening, we will adjourn the meeting for a short time to resolve the issue. I remind attendees that any member of the public addressing Council must extend due courtesy and respect to Council and the processes under which it operates, and must take direction from the Chair whenever called on to do so. Speakers must remain respectful, and statements or questions must not be defamatory, offensive, or objectionable, aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of Council staff, or relate to a matter outside the powers of Council. For tonight's meeting, we have Acting CEO Lachlan Johnson. Thank you. The first item is on tonight's agenda is request to attend by electronic means. Acting CEO, do we have any requests from councillors to participate in tonight's meeting by electronic means?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, we've received a request from Councillor Crawford this evening.
Thank you. Councillors, I now seek a mover for the motion that Council approves the request to attend the meeting electronically received from Councillor Crawford. Councillor Martin to move, Councillor Baxter to second. Thank you. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thanks. Or carried at least. Carried. Thank you. Move on to apologies. Councillors, do we have any apologies? I see everyone with someone online. We are all here. Thank you. Moving on to minutes. Councillors, the minutes of the Council meeting held on the 19th of April 2023 have been circulated. Are there any questions of these minutes? As I see none, can I have a mover to confirm? Thank you, Councillor Bond and Councillor Martin to second. I'll put that to a vote. All in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have declaration of conflicts of interest. Do any councillors have a conflict of interest in a matter being discussed at tonight's meeting? No? Thank you. Now, there'll be a slight change to the ordinary agenda in order to recognise two important contributors or contributions to the City of Port Phillip. The first one is Georgina Solitis. I would now refer to Councillor Clark to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. I recently was appointed on behalf of Council to the Multicultural Advisory Committee, which is a privilege for me to be part of that committee, and taking over from Councillor Baxter, who's been on the committee for a couple of years. And I've been made aware at the first meeting that the chair, long-standing chair, Georgina Solitis, has stepped down and resigned. And I just wanted the chance to acknowledge her on behalf of the committee and Council, I guess, for the work that she's done as the outgoing chair. She was a foundation member of the Multicultural Advisory Committee, having been appointed when it was formally commenced in 2019, and has served as chair since then until April this year. She's also, which I know Councillor Martin will speak to, a member of the Older Persons Advisory Committee for many years as well, so a very active member of our community. Her achievements as chair and on the committee included the recommendation that Council would join the Welcoming Cities Network, which was realised in 2022, and the delivery of a diverse and ambitious plan. And I can support that ambitious plan because I saw all the actions that we've got to get through in a very short space of time yesterday. She represented the Multi-Advisory Committee at the Victorian Multicultural Commission's annual Diversity Week Gala, the Federation of Ethnic Communities Council Conference, and many other events. It's a very busy community. As chair, she organised a number of council's multicultural programs around the city, was an active member at all the community events, and a dynamic advocate for the culturally and linguistically diverse residents that we have in our municipality. As I said, on behalf of the committee and the council, I'd like to thank Georgina for her years of work on the committee, acknowledging the gratitude and the time and effort it takes, and the drive to run a committee like that, and that she's invested in the committee, and recognise her contribution to making our city more inclusive and supportive of diverse communities. And I look forward to working with the new chair when they're elected to continue on her good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. The second person I'd like to recognise is Stefan Mitrick, Coordinator of Transport Safety, who will be retiring from the City of Port Phillip later this month after 31 years of dedicated service. Stefan has dedicated his career to road user safety in the City of Port Phillip, with a huge amount of innovative and Australian-first infrastructure solutions being led by him and his team. He has a deep love for the city and has always shown a strong commitment to protecting and enhancing residential amenity. There are very few locations in Port Phillip where he wouldn't have improved safety over the years. He has helped to make the City of Port Phillip one of the safest municipalities for all road users in Australia by implementing 40 kilometres an hour across 90% of the road network and securing millions of dollars in external funding to remove black spots from our roads. Stefan has mentored many engineers over the last 3 decades and has passed on his passion for sustainable transport and safety, especially for pedestrians, to the next generation of traffic engineers. Notable projects include reducing Dorcas Street down to 1 lane of traffic each way and adapting the parking to 30 degrees to install bike lanes after very contested community consultation, which saw one side of the road support the change and the other side rejecting them. Once changes were in place, the side previously not in favour requested them to be made to their side too. He is also immensely proud of designing and installing the first roundabouts with zebra crossings for pedestrians in Cecil Street, South Melbourne. Stefan is joining us online, so please join me in congratulating him on the amazing legacy he leaves behind and wishing him luck on the next steps of his journey. The next part, we'll move on to public questions and submissions on report items. Now, I give you a bit of a heads up. We have 9 speakers registered at this point. The first 5 are all on the same topic, so I'll call you up one by one. I'll need you to say your name, your suburb, and you have 3 minutes to speak. But we're going to hold the response because it's the same. We have the copy of the questions here, and the response will come from the same officer. So the response will be held. I call upon Bill Condon submitting a question to council. Hi, Bill.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Have a seat. Is the light on yet? Is there a red light on?
Red light.
Okay, it should be on then. So go ahead, say your full name, your suburb, and you're given 3 minutes.
William Michael Condon, otherwise known as Bill, Albert Park, and I've got 3 minutes, have I?
Go for it. Yep.
Before I start with the question, I'd just like to describe something that happened to my wife and I this morning. It was about 2:45, and we were woken by the very heavy rainfall. To us, that's a signal that something is wrong, that there's about a strong degree of possibility that we'll have a flood and we'll lose vehicles. So we got up. Thankfully, the vehicles are okay. It happened again at about 5:15, up again, and then again at 6:15. So that's not an untypical event when we have heavy rainfall. This has been going on for probably at least 11 years that I can recall. And we've reported this to council several times, and we're not getting much progress. My question is, when will this be fixed, and how will you keep us informed of progress? Can we have a timeline, please?
Thank you. So, like I said, we have Mark Thompson here, who is going to respond to all the questions at the end. I think that's just going to be the most efficient way, if that's all right with you all. Yep. All right. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks very much.
I call upon Sam Barlow, submitting a question to council. Hi, Sam.
Hello. Councillors. My question relates to the frequent and severe flooding at the bottom end of St Vincent Street.
Can I pause you real quick? Sorry. Name, suburb, then you can start, please.
My name's Sam Barlow. My suburb is Albert Park.
Thank you.
My question relates to the frequent and severe flooding at the bottom end of St Vincent Street near Richardson Street. Since my family moved to Albert Park 6 months ago, there have been two notable incidents on 23rd of March 2023 and 15th of April 2023. On both occasions, our car was parked out the front of our house and was quickly submerged in water. We were lucky both times that someone was home and our neighbour alerted us and we could try to move the car. However, after the second time, our car would not start and it's had to be towed away to the service centre, where 2 weeks later they are still trying to diagnose what's wrong. Water damage in cars is notoriously hard to fix, and I've been told 2 other cars parked on our street have been written off in recent years. I can see a situation in the future where we are away and there is heavy rainfall and no one will be there to move the car. Therefore, my question to Council is, who should we call when we have flooding, both during and after business hours? And what can we expect to receive? For example, a truck to siphon away the water to limit damage to people's cars parked in the street.
Thank you. I call upon Bernard Shee, submitting a question to Council. Just so you know, the names and the suburbs just on the record. That's why we asked for it. So thank you. Hi, Bernard.
My name's Bernard Sheehy from Albert Park. As you know, it's a question about the flooding at the in St Vincent Street, down near the Richardson Street end. My question specifically was, as the road and particularly the gutter often flood, what does the council propose to do to rectify this situation? And if I just may give you an example, it's fairly important to me. Last year my car was parked legally, as per the signs, nose to gutter, 60 degrees, which I did. And when I returned home that evening, the road and the gutter were flooded and the car was standing in about 40 centimetres of water. The damage to the engine, the alternator, I don't know what about cars. I do know it cost $2,000 to get it fixed. So it was the alternator and the battery and some of the electrics. I requested the council to pay for the repairs, as the drains were and remain not in proper working order. You won't be surprised to know that the council lawyers advised me that, of course, the council was not liable. I just continue to reiterate Bill's point that around about 4 o'clock this morning, my partner Pauline got up to move the car because the rain was so heavy, and that didn't matter so much, but she woke me up. I'd like an answer to my question. What are you going to do? Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon Lisa Condon, submitting a question to Council. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Oops. Okay, so it's Linda Condon.
Oh, I have Lisa here. Sorry, Linda, I thought so.
Yeah, I know somebody called me Lisa.
Oh,
I don't
sorry.
know the name, but it's actually Linda. So Linda Condon, and I also live in Albert Park. And as you're probably aware, I have sent some text messages to a number of councillors as well. And I think it's just come to a head for us all. We've just had enough. It's 11 years of flooding out the front. We've tried on numerous occasions. I've sent at least 3 lots of snap, send and solve to council. I know you're trying to do something about it, but we really urgently now need something done. We also understand some modelling has now been undertaken of the drainage system. I think Mark told me that the other day. And I hear there are now 16,000 drains instead of only 3,000. So it's no wonder you've got a problem. We've also since heard that because of the sludge in the gutters, that many of the drains are only about 25% efficient. So I can understand that there is a big problem. So we did have a super sucker, I don't know whether that's the correct name, for the truck that came along and removed at least 8 truckloads of sludge from our gutters, I think late last year or early this year. And really it's had no effect at all on the intensity of the flooding. The other problem we have is that there's lots of rumours around. You know, what's the problem? Oh, well, we get told there's a block drain, and then we get told there's a wall, and then we get told that Multinet and another company have put some concrete into a drain they broke. But the story just keeps getting worse and the rumours go round. So we really just need to know what's going to be done. And my question is it time for the council to consider raising the level of the road to ensure that the low point in the road does not become a greater risk with climate change as predicted at coastalrisk.com.au, where our street has been identified as a low-lying area at risk of flooding? Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I call upon Claire Shoemake, submitting a question to Council.
Hello, Claire Shoemake from Albert Park. Like my neighbours, I've lived in St Vincent Street for 6 years now, had many instances of flooding. I was away for the recent one in March, and unfortunately, thankfully for my lovely neighbours, who one had a key and one knew where I kept my spare key to the car, moved the car for me and put it into the central reservation. Had that not happened, it absolutely would have flooded. It had the severity and frequency since Multinet did the work last year of whatever they did by digging at the road on Richardson Street has become worse. So it's noticeably different, it's noticeably more frequent, and also like my neighbours, I have disturbed sleep. Whenever I hear heavy rain on the roof, I run up, I have to go and check outside to see where the level is and do I have to move my car at night. So I asked the council what resources are they going to be putting behind this, both monetary and personnel-wise, to get this fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We can hear there's a big problem, so I'm going to hand over to you, Mark Thompson, to give us some answers there.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. It's greatly appreciated that you bring this to Council's attention. I'll answer each individual. A moderate storm event in October 2022 had unanticipated impacts. The following day, officers using CCTV investigated the incident and found a 375mm council pipe had recently been cut and capped off with concrete. The utility provider and contractors undertaking this work in the area were informed and have admitted liability for capping the pipe and in effect decommissioning this essential line. The 375mm pipe function was to drain the water from the west side of St Vincent's Road directly into the Melbourne Water 1800mm main drain located on the south side of Richardson Street. A direct reconnection was not possible and a new design avoiding all infrastructure services to traverse Richardson Street is required. Officers have been working with the utility providers to find a solution to the issue raised by Mr Sheehy. In relation to Mr Barlow's question tonight, properties in St Vincent Street, Albert Park, are located within a flood zone, which has a special building planning overlay being Schedule 3. The relevant flood authority is Melbourne Water, and in flooding emergencies, the State Emergency Services is the responding agency. In relation to Mr Condon's question tonight, the preferred design solution is to install new twin 300mm pipes from St Vincent Street on the west side to an existing pit in Richardson Street. Council is currently negotiating an agreement with a gas distributor to traverse under the 300mm high pressure gas line in Richardson Street, which we expect to have signed in the coming weeks. The depth of this gas pipe is 1.5 metres, and to attain the fall and the work within the parameters of the existing infrastructure, the stormwater pipes will need to be laid within the gas exclusion zone. Currently, there is an industry shortage of stormwater pipes with supply delays of 6 months. To expedite the design solution, Council pre-ordered pipes with the expected delivery time now in mid-June. This is a priority project. However, the earliest availability of Council contractors is early July, and we're still working with the gas distributor to ascertain if their contractors can deliver the project earlier. We will endeavour to bring this timeline forward if the contractor and pipe availability changes. In relation to Ms Condon's question, raising the height of the road is not recommended or a viable option as this would have a negative impact to the existing property's freeboard. Melbourne Water main drain, the 1800mm pipe, is currently backflowing into Council's 1050mm pipe, which is located on the eastern side of St Vincent Street. Officers have been unable to determine the cause of this backflow, as the Melbourne Water pipe is not accessible. The top of the Melbourne Water pipe is 2 metres deep, and the nearest exposed entry pit is 220 metres away in Bridgeport Street West. This is a single entry pit and is too far to implement a safe confined spaces procedure. Council will be installing an additional access pipe in our 1050 pipe close to the Melbourne Water connection point. So we'll attempt to dewater, CCTV and hopefully locate the cause of the backflow issue. This information will be provided to Melbourne Water. In relation to Ms Shoemaker's question, officers have been working with Melbourne Water since 2018 on the Pickle Street catchment, providing Council's flood modelling, surveying and providing condition and functionality of Melbourne Water assets to them in this area. This data has been provided to assist Melbourne Water with the potential future replacement upgrade of the Melbourne Water's Pickle Street outlet pump station. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I have, let me just say this real quick. I've been advised that we are having technical difficulties with the online stream, so we are going to have to take a break. But if you want to quickly ask this, we'll stop after that.
So, see how the microphone goes. So, Mr Thompson, is there any short-term fix that we can do to alleviate these residents' concerns, something that, if it doesn't get rid of all of the water, can at least increase the flow away or divert some of it elsewhere at times of heavy rain, just to get them through the next couple of months?
Unfortunately, Councillor Martin, no, there isn't. It's the lowest point of the street, and we can't get water to the opposite side of the street because there's a 300mm high-pressure gas line, which is really inhibiting our ability to do a temporary solution.
We might need a briefing on this one because everyone looks very excited. Yeah, a lot of questions. Let me just talk about the technical difficulties. Are we good? Should we take a break? Okay. Look, I respect that there are a lot of questions and this is important. It might be an opportunity just to speak in person, and the people online, we can catch you up. But we're going to take that break now. Thanks. This will reflect what we decide. It is much louder also.
A quick question, Mayor.
Yes?
Is it an issue with the live stream itself in that the actual web video later would be fine and it's actually just the live stream itself? Or
Head of Governance?
Through you, Mayor, the recording will be impacted as well. So we're recording for purposes for minutes, but and the minutes will be an accurate record of the meeting. But
All right, so we will continue. Okay, councillors have some questions of the officer in relation to the previous public questions. We'll start here with Councillor Martin.
So a clarifying question. I'm trying to think of a short-term solutions. If there's no physical solution, we can't put a pump in and pump water from one side of the road to the other. And given that one of the major concerns of the residents seems to be to do with parking and damage to their cars, is there a way that we could alter the parking regulations for them? So, for example, if they know that there's heavy rain coming, they can pull their car up onto the footpath in question. We're halfway in the driveway on the medium strip without getting booked.
I'm not sure where that feed's coming from. Maybe online? Is someone not muted online? Oh, sorry. Okay, that's all right.
You want me to repeat that or not?
I think we got most of it. Thank you. Sorry, Acting CEO.
Through you, Mayor. Councillor Martin, as Mr Thompson has outlined, the solution is not something that can be addressed quickly, so we're happy to have a look at what we can do to try and reduce the impact on the residents, and if that means we have to make some temporary parking changes and make that lessen the immediate impact whilst we sort out what we're going to do with the Service Authority, then I think that's something we absolutely can look at. We're happy to work with the residents to find a solution to help make at least the interim period until we can fix what is an untenable situation better.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to go down the row. So, Councillor Baxter.
Yes, well, this would be a question, I suppose, for Mark Thompson or potentially the Acting CEO. obviously this is a case where, third parties such as Multinet, which we have a lot to do with and will often do works in our municipality and impact positively or negatively on our infrastructure. Do we have protocols when third parties damage or destroy infrastructure? Are those publicly available, those protocols? How do we deal with those?
Through you, Mayor. Recently, we've been one of the first councils to actually implement permitting under the Road Management Act, which means that utility companies that work in the road reserve and cut over 8 square metres need to have a permit for that. Previously, we did it under local laws and they were exempt from applying for a permit. So now we've got greater control over knowing where utility companies are actually working. Our CCTV program is proactive in looking at areas that come within our stormwater network, and we CCTV prior to the works commencing, and normally the asset protection officers will go and check the jobs as well.
Thank you. Next question, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wondered, and I know it was probably going to be a difficult answer, is there any way to get any timeframes out of Melbourne Water in terms of I think you answered 2 of the residents' questions referencing Melbourne Water?
Through you, Mayor, I don't have any timeframes. We supplied information in the Pickle Street catchment. We're working closely with Melbourne Water, looking at how that catchment operates in 2018. They indicated that their pump at the end of the outlet was coming to end of life, and we did some modelling with Melbourne Water to look at upsizing that pump, but I do not have any timelines on when they'll be doing that.
Is there a way of requesting that information?
Yep, through you, Mayor, we can make some more inquiries with Melbourne Water and see what timelines they may have for that works.
Thank you. Over the side, Councillor Bond.
If this was a private building site who did this and had this impact on our streets, I imagine there would be some sort of penalties, financial penalties, fines or something like that for the quality of work or the impact or interfering with council assets. Is there anything in those lines that we could pursue with regards to this with this particular service provider?
Through you, Mayor, I might take this question. As Councillor Bond, as Mr Thompson outlined before, Council has powers under the Road Management Act to both permit and infringe people who fail to get a permit or fail to comply with conditions. That includes service authorities. As Mr Thompson outlined before, once this became known to us, this damage to Council's drainage network, it was raised with the service authority and their contractor. They have admitted liability. They are working with us to try and remedy the situation. Obviously, we would like to get it done very quickly, given the damage occurred last year and the impact that it's having. In the event that service authorities or others damage council assets and they don't rectify them or they don't admit liability, there are provisions under the Road Management Act which enable us to take enforcement action against them, including compelling them to fix the damaged assets or seeking financial compensation for the damage caused. As Mr Thompson outlined, the City of Port Phillip is one of the first municipalities to start using the Road Management Act for this. The Road Management Act provides significant powers to council in this regard. A lot of other councils utilise the local law, which is what we used to do as well. The powers under the Road Management Act are much more significant. So there are a number of tools available to council to try and avoid this happening.
Thank you. Councillor Serikoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask a question. If there's a direct relationship between the damage to residents' property, whether that be a house or cars, is there any way that they can go about claiming damages through the company that is liable for causing damage to council property in the first place?
Through you, Mayor, residents are able to put in insurance claims to council, and it sounds like from what's been raised tonight a number have. Each of those insurance claims are assessed by council's insurer. In this case, we have a third party who's damaged council assets, and we would be referring any claims that arise from that damage through to them. I encourage any of the residents who've raised concerns about it tonight to contact council, and we can ensure that that occurs.
Do you have one? Now's an opportunity. Go ahead, Councillor Niagri.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming along tonight. My question was just so I'm clear on timelines here. If we upgrade the pipe on St Vincent's Street, we're looking at solving most of the flooding, but it won't be until we do the further works on Richardson to get that access to the Melbourne water drain that we'll be able to fully deal with the 1 in 100 year events.
Through you, Mayor. The current service level in that area is a 1 in 20 year event, judged by our flood modelling and our updated flood modelling. So reinstating that, or upgrading and improving to a twin 300 pipe will give us that service level. Above that service level, there would be upgrades to the overall drainage network through Melbourne Water's intervention.
All right. That was a little bit more of an unusual public question time. You kind of saw what a briefing looks like. So we're going to move on from that. Thank you all for coming. You're welcome to go if you'd like, but there's 4 more speakers that are speaking to items on the agenda tonight. When people speak to the items on the agenda, if you have a question in there, a councillor might take up your question at the agenda item. Otherwise, normally it's just a submission. You're speaking to the agenda item. Thank you very much. Do you maybe that? Okay. I have an update on the live stream for tonight's meeting. The webcast is now working. However, we are still experiencing issues with the Facebook live stream. Officers are communicating this via Council's Facebook page to direct people to the webcast stream on Council's website. Importantly, we do not think the recording of tonight's meeting will be impacted. All right. I call upon Coralie Ling, speaking to item 9.1, Older Persons Advisory Committee, Annual Report 2022. Hi, Coralie. Name, suburb, and 3 minutes.
Coralie Ling from St Kilda. I want to speak about in-home services as part of the older persons report to council. There are about 16,000 older people in the city of Port Phillip, and 1,000 plus of these receive some form of in-home care services. The aim of the Positive Ageing Policy and OPAC, the Older Persons Advisory Committee, is that we work for the well-being of older people. And the key point is that most older people in the city of Port Phillip want to age in place. And so that means that there's 1,000 plus and more in the future who need the quality and trusted aged care services, in-home services that the city of Port Phillip provides. And I can testify to the trust and quality of these services because just this morning I received the service of cleaning and also was enabled to go to a gentle exercise group at the PCYC, part of that provision. And so I want to advocate for these services that the council provides. The government policy is changing, and we're glad to have, from the successful Bayside program, Bryce Cragg, who is giving us advice, and also we are very glad to have the continuing research from Alison Kenwood, the Manager of Community Wellbeing Inclusion, who's here tonight. We cannot have the disasters that have happened in other councils where older people have been left in distressing circumstances when the aged care in-home services were dropped. We want trusted, high-quality City of Port Phillip services to continue for the well-being of thousands plus of older people in the City of Port Phillip.
Thank you, Coralie. I call upon Wendy Priddle, speaking to item 9.1, Alderpersons Advisory Committee Annual Report. Hi, Wendy. Name, suburb, 3 minutes, please.
My name is Wendy Priddle. I'm from Elwood. I'm the current chair of the Alderpersons Advisory Committee, and speaking on behalf of Frida Ehrlich, who was the chair in 2022 and couldn't make it. I would like to thank the councillors and council officers for taking the time to read OPAC's annual report for 2022. We are currently advertising for new members, as we've lost several members over the last 12 months, including Georgina Salidas that Councillor Clark spoke to about earlier. And Councillor Martin and several of OPAC members attended the funeral of Sheila Querney yesterday. If you know of anyone who is interested in helping our residents to live full and happy lives in Port Phillip, please divert them to the OPAC page on our website. We're looking for diverse members, people who are interested and engaged and wanting to assist older residents. Our annual report is a fabulous summary of the many consultations and issues advocated for by OPAC in 2022. Sometimes it's hard for us to see a result out of the work that we do. Things seem to take a long time sometimes. But my personal highlight last year was the open and enthusiastic collaboration with council officers, in particular Teresa Parsons, Katrina Turjung, Alison Kenwood and Christine Denning, on the positive ageing policy. And we look forward to working with them on the implementation plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I call upon Lee Hardy, the West St Kilda Residents Association, speaking to item 10.1, Cowderoy Street turn ban consultation findings.
Hi, Lee Hardy, West St Kilda, president of the West St Kilda Residents Association, which is a group that's been going representing the 2,500 residents of West St Kilda for about 24 years now. Our group has been raising resident concerns over rat running through our streets for over 8 years. These concerns have related to safety, noise, congestion, general disruption in the area. We've had numerous meetings with a series of councillors. I think we're probably past you guys. I think we've had 8 or 9 years of councillors we've been working with. As well as the council's expert traffic groups. But over this time, nothing has been done by council until now to help resolve the concerns of residents. Nothing. That's 8 years of nothing being done to try to address this problem. Our request is really simple. Discourage rat-running traffic on residential streets. The streets were designed for residents, they weren't designed for through traffic. We recognise there is no easy or simple solution, but doing nothing certainly is not the solution. Regarding the motion, the solution proposed is not what our residents have been proposing, but it is the recommendation of Council's expert traffic management group. This is not a seat-of-the-pants solution to a little problem. The traffic group has been aware of our concerns for over 8 years and has been involved in many discussions with us and with others, as well as consulting studies and so on, over the problem. The motion proposed is the recommendation of these experts. This is their considered position based on that 8 years of thinking about this problem. I know there are concerns over just moving the problem from one area to another, and this is certainly not what we want to see either. However, I believe Council's traffic group has also been considering this and thinks the proposed change is worth investigating. Don't forget, what is proposed is a trial. If we knew the answer, the trial would not be needed. We are happy to support the traffic experts' proposal and watch the trial closely. Based on the trial, we know and expect that other changes will probably be required, And in fact, this is why you have a trial, to see what works and what doesn't work. So after 8 years of non-action, it's great to see the council starting to try to resolve the problems. Our residents will be very glad to see some action taking place after this time. Finally, I should say we're also supportive of an overall investigation of resolving these problems in the broader local area. However, that doesn't stop a sort of a trial along the way.
Thank you very much. I call upon our last speaker, Peter Denson, speaking into item 10.1, Cowderoy Street, turn ban consultation findings.
Madam Mayor, do you mind? I suffer from migraines and foggy brain, and I've written down what's
Sure. That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you. All right, when you're ready, name, suburb, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Peter Denson, West St Kilda. My submission is for the Cowderoy group, traffic group, and also as a West St Kilda ratepayer with Lee. And there's 250 in one group and 2,500 in the other group. And as Lee said, we've been waiting for 8 years. Our residents strongly support this trial. We've had numerous requests for trials, and this rat running just continues to grow. Item 4.1 of the report notes these multiple requests. Item 4.2 notes that it's a local street, and I include a plan of Council's road classification plan that shows that it is a yellow local street on the plan and not a through street. Item 4.3 of the report details 20, 21 and 22 traffic counts showing traffic in excess of 3,000 volume per day on our local street. And this is severely impacted by the rat running traffic. We believe the actual traffic being in excess of the street capacity risks potential injury, claims and worse to the council from the public, with the significantly higher than present condition with increasing of the traffic. Our residents have witnessed near misses, accidents. We note 2 recent accidents in Cowderoy Street and sadly a death in Fitzroy Street last year. We believe these actual traffic volumes are in excess of 4,000 vehicles per day, 20% above the capacity. And this is because the recent ones were taken in COVID times when people are not commuting as much from the city, and also we've had 2 years of La Nina, increased rain, and less of the normal drier and hotter conditions, particularly the summer evening when traffic returns home earlier, exacerbating the rat running traffic. We also endorse report items 4.9 and 10 and believe that the Cowderoy traffic will likely spread out as the report details via continuing along Canterbury to Fraser Street or to Langridge and McGregor. The report also notes these roads have the capacity of the displaced traffic without creating adverse amenity issues. There's also traffic lights, pedestrian traffic lights between Cowderoy and Fraser for the light rail that has stop-go during evening peak hours, and that stops the traffic often, so that often people can't get into Fraser. And last item, the 50-50 counting that council did doesn't take into account a lot of people like me who suggested we needed an overall study, and if that was included, the numbers would be far higher.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
That concludes the public question time tonight. Councillors, we'll now move into councillor question time. These are generic questions of council officers, not on specific agenda items. Councillors, do you have any questions you'd like to raise? Councillor Nyagui?
Thank you, Mayor. My question was, I've had a lot of interest over the last few months in our rollout of protected bike lanes across the municipality, and I was keen to ask officers today about our progress in implementing the integrated transport strategy. We're obviously 5 years into a 10-year plan now, and there's a number of items in Outcome 1 that I think are of interest to the community in terms of their implementation, and I was keen to get an update from officers.
Sure. I refer to Shay Sutherland for a response, please. Is it on? It doesn't sound very loud. Red light? Yeah, it looks on now. Thanks.
Through you, Mayor. So I'm just clarifying through the Mayor if it's Outcome 1 or Outcome 2. Outcome 2 refers to pedestrian and bike facilities.
Yes, Outcome 2.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for your question on the implementation of the integrated transport strategy. A 4-year review of the strategy is currently being prepared, and a report on this will be brought to Council in the middle of the year. Many of the 42 actions in the strategy are broad and ongoing, and while most are showing significant progress, many will also take time and external stakeholder support and resources to complete. 7 actions are fully complete, including development and implementation of the parking management policy and the new car share policy and guidelines. With regards to Outcome 2, our community is healthier because it has safe, connected and convenient walking and bike riding choices. I would like to share some of the delivery highlights from the last 4 years. These include upgrading the intersection of Wellington Street to improve traffic safety and pedestrian and bike riding facilities. We've delivered 12 pedestrian safety projects. These include raised pavement, zebra and yellow top crossings and curb build-outs to shorten crossing distances. We've worked with 7 of our 20 local schools to identify ways to make it safer to walk to school, and we've been working across all our schools every year to promote Walk to School Month and Ride to School Day. We do have a high level of participation in those. We completed the Moray Street bike route in 2018, including Victoria's first 2 protected roundabouts. In 2022, we completed the Garden City bike route. We've delivered a secure bike parking, which is marketed as a parketeer at Balaclava train station, and that's part of the Marlborough House development. We run annual Ride to Work days, bike confidence training, monthly pop-up bike repairs. We've run 2 festivals of everyday riding, and we've made 2 cargo bikes available to be loaned through Elwood Toy Library, and they're all measures to support our community to ride bikes. Last but not least, following 9 years of advocacy by Council, multiple serious crashes and a fatality, the Victorian Government has delivered the St Kilda Road protected bike lanes from Dorcas Street to the St Kilda Junction. The junction works are in progress as we speak. These and other achievements will be summarised in the strategy review.
Thank you very much. I have a question tonight. There have been several concerning reports in the media recently about Ackland Street. What are the officers doing to address the issues raised? I'll refer to Lauren Belcower for a response, please.
Through you, Mayor, Council is certainly aware of trader and community concern involving Ackland Street. The issues are multifaceted, and as such, a wide range of responses are being worked upon. The plaza is a key focus, with landscaping concept work being done, as well as encouragement of greater outdoor trading and event opportunities. The colourful temporary seating was removed earlier this week and won't be replaced in the near future. The larger granite seating will be considered as part of the landscaping project. Wires installed above the plaza area will soon host coloured catenary lighting. This will beautify the street, but also respond to feedback from traders and visitors about lack of lighting in the evenings. There is currently a mini golf and carousel activation that will be present for 2 weeks only. Colourful decals were affixed to the pavement earlier this week as part of a Love My Place grant. They've received a warm response from local traders and serve to brighten up what can be a barren space. Our council is working with Propeller AI to undertake a retail mapping process As part of this, an analysis has been undertaken of the 20-minute neighbourhoods surrounding the precinct, including the local supply and demand of people, infrastructure, retail businesses and services. This information is being used to recommend the highest and best retail uses for the precinct that will bring benefit to customers, the surrounding community and help create sustainable retail businesses. Providing this information is one of the ways Council can assist landlords and agents in securing tenants that have the best chance of success. We continue to work closely with the Trader Association and have also reached out to key landlords to try and reverse the vacancy issues and ensure an attractive retail offering returns to the area. Our city amenity officers are working closely with the police and are currently rostered to patrol multiple times throughout the day to enforce alcohol bans and engage with traders and passers-by. The issues involving the plaza are multi-layered and need to be resolved in partnership with Victoria Police, agencies' outreach programs and with the community reporting incidents to Victoria Police. Council will continue to investigate and invest in strategies for long-term sustainable changes.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any other questions tonight? If not, we'll move on to the sealing schedule. There are no items on the sealing schedule tonight. We'll move on to petitions and joint letters. Councillors, we have one petition and no joint letters on tonight's agenda. 7.1 petition, Protect Pedestrians' Right to Safety on Footpaths. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers in relation to this item? I see none. Would anybody like to move this or an alternative recommendation? Councillor Baxter, was there a question? Or Councillor Baxter? Would you like to move the officer's rec or something else?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move an alternative motion, if that's okay. So it's essentially the 8 points from the officer recommendation remain the same, but with the addition of a 9th point. Did you want me to read that out and then get a second?
Yes, you can read the red part out only.
Yep, sure. So is it up there? Yep, cool. So 9 notes that council uses local law clause 49, interfering with council assets to control obstructions, and our impounding process allows council to remove dangerous items quickly, for example, bikes and signage chained to our assets blocking the street, and has an agreement with the operators of shared e-scooters and shared e-bikes for removal where they are obstructing the footpaths or in no parking zones, and council can impound these if no action is taken.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Martin. All right, Councillor Baxter, would you like to speak to it?
Sure, no problem. So obviously I'd like to thank the petitioners for putting forward this petition. We are finding that with... Sorry, Councillor Watt?
That's right. If you have a clarifying question, you can hold it for now, but go ahead.
Sure.
Councillor Baxter?
Sure. I'll say my bit and then So obviously there is an issue with new forms of micromobility and transport, and a limited amount of space in the inner city where conflicts are becoming more common. We do, in our integrated transport strategy and in our general policies, have a hierarchy of safe and healthy travel within our municipality, with pedestrians at the top. So it is really our responsibility to look out for the safety of pedestrians. Obviously, there are existing road rules and government regulations around what can and can't be done safely on footpaths, and we know that there are people out there that are obviously breaching those, and that is a difficult challenge to deal with. But the officers' notes here, I think, lay out quite clearly what council's role is and what it is that we can do, and hopefully we can do more in order to ensure that safety. The addition that I've put in there refers to not just safety issues when we're talking about multiple people travelling on a footpath using different methods of transport, but also the risk to safety when it comes to various debris that's left on footpaths, including things like e-scooters, shopping trolleys, and so on, and talks about what our role is and how we deal with those.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
I was contacted yesterday by someone who I believe is one of the two lead petitioners. I happen to have a number of the OPAC members with me. We're on speakerphone, and the people who initiated this petition were particularly concerned about the impact on older people of people using bicycles, scooters inappropriately on footpaths, and happen to be an issue that is very dear to the heart of the rest of our OPEC members too. Can I congratulate these two older members of our community who managed to rally over 1,100 people to get them behind them? I think it's a fantastic evidence, shows the commitment of so many people in our community about this very important issue. Can I thank the officers for preparing such a detailed recommendation, all of which I think are fantastic. Can I thank Councillor Baxter for his addition, which I think probably goes to the nub of the problem. There are probably more issues, particularly for older members of our society, with bicycles and scooters lying on footpaths than there are from those that are moving. And Councillor Baxter's addition is going to pick up on this very neatly. And I hope that our advocacy and our vigilance will pay off so that in 6 months' time the petitioners won't need to come back to us and ask for help. Hopefully they'll be coming back in 6 months' time and thanking us for the initiatives that we've taken on their behalf.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to this item? Councillor Sierkoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering, is this the time to ask a question?
You can ask a clarifying question because it was an all.
Thank you. I have a clarifying question. I got really impressed with this petition, but I'm also wondering if this point 9 might also include other forms of risks of safety for our community, notably if when you've got narrow footpath. I've had the situation recently where a person who's visually impaired walking on a narrow street and cannot walk on that street because of e-bikes or e-scooters are left on that footpath. So would this somehow also cover that situation, such as I think the response from officers was that they can declare some streets where no e-scooters are to be left when they're too narrow for passage of persons?
Do we have an answer to that one, or could it maybe form part of the trial feedback? If you don't, we can take it on notice, essentially.
Through you, Mayor. That is definitely something that is possible for us to do, and we do that regularly where there are problematic zones. We do declare no parking zones for shared e-bikes and shared e-scooters as part of our existing agreement, and we are advocating for the council to continue to have the power to do that through ongoing schemes. So yes, we could update that. Yes.
We could certainly include it as part of the response.
But we don't need to update the motion. It sounds like it's all fine. Okay.
It's mostly noting things.
Yeah, all right. Does anybody else want to speak to the item? If not, let's go ahead and take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the presentation of reports. The first one up is 9.1, Older Persons Advisory Committee, Annual Report 2022. Councillors, are there any questions of the officers in relation to this report? I do not see any. Do I have a councillor that wants to move this or something else? Councillor Martin, would you like to move this? Okay, and Councillor Baxter second. Councillor Martin, you can speak to it.
The report speaks for itself. I hope everyone who's looked at our council papers has had a read of it, and you'll see the amazing job that the members of our Older Persons Advisory Committee do. Can I just thank Wendy, our current president, who's here representing the rest of her group. They are an amazing group of people. They don't just advocate for older members of the community, but they provide advice to council on all the various policy drafts that come through. You heard the passion which one of our speakers, when Coralie Ling was speaking, when she was talking about her passion to help with OPAC pushing to work with council to ensure that in-home care stays somewhere within the province of our council. That's the passion that these people bring, the commitment. They are an amazing group of people, and I commend their annual report to you.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter?
Ditto.
All right. Anybody else want to speak to the item? If not, let's take that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, on to 10.1, Cowderoy Street turn ban consultation findings. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers in relation to the report? I don't see any. What? You're pointing to me. Do you have a question, Louise? Councillor Crawford, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't take it in time. I think it was moving very fast. I have a question just in regards to, obviously this is not the ideal solution as the speaker's referenced. Can you just refresh my memory, because I couldn't find it in the report, do we think that if there were traffic lights installed at Park Street and Victoria Street, that would be part of the solution? Is that the more longer term, or is it just the junction pattern and agreed break, and that there would be just a traffic light?
Shane Sutherland.
Through you, Mayor. Ideally, the intersection of Canterbury, Fitzroy and Grey would make the most improvement. Improvement of that intersection would make the most improvement to traffic. There's some complexities if we were to implement signals at Park and Fitzroy that could actually generate more traffic into the area, unless there were a whole suite of supporting measures which would also be complex to implement and could have unforeseen consequences. So I think it would need to be looked at in more detail.
Right, I have a question. Are you good? Crawford? All good? Okay. I have a question. Should this pass tonight, or whatever we end up doing, do we have the ability to contact Google Maps or any other GPS to update on any changes, or provide feedback about the problems being felt?
Through you, Mayor. So we have no more ability as council, as I understand it, than any community member to provide feedback to Google Maps in particular. I'm not aware of our ability to feedback to other GIS services, but yes, we can provide them with feedback, and I believe we have done, but it's not a reliable solution, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Thank you. All right, another question, Councillor Serkoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know how the direction of this motion will go, but if it does get voted up, I'm just wondering that I've looked at the map where the counters are to go, and I would like it if Council could possibly re-look at where they are, such as the one in Longmore Street, which is a no-through road. And I don't think that this one would serve any purpose if the motion was voted up. So if we could re-look at that.
Through you, Mayor. I'm very happy to have another look at that, Councillor.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'll look for a mover of the officer's report or something else. Councillor Niagwe, do you want to move the officer's recommendation or something else?
I'll move an alternate recommendation, Mayor.
All right. I believe we have it up here. Can you read out the red parts, please?
Sure. 3.2 endorses a 6-month trial between July-December 2023 of a no right turn restriction from 4:30 to 6:30 Monday to Friday from Canterbury Road to Cowderoy Street, St Kilda West.
Thank you. And the next part also says
3.3 requests that officers evaluate the 6-month trial and provide a report to Council on traffic measures required to further reduce the evening peak rat running in the St Kilda West area.
Thank you for reading it. It just helps if people are only listening, not seeing the screen. Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Martin? All right, Councillor Niagwe, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just wanted to say, in the interest of transparency, I would like to state on the record that I have an interest in item 10.1 today because I live in the vicinity of the proposed right turn ban. However, I have determined that I do not have a general or material conflict of interest and will therefore not be leaving the meeting during the debate and will obviously participate in the voting.
Thank you.
This is a really tricky area of traffic management, obviously trying to avoid rat running while also not creating adverse impacts for other residents around our city. Our forces have been working with the community. I really want to thank the St Kilda West Residents Association, the Cowderoy Street traffic group and others who have engaged on these issues and engaged with council, and I want to thank our council officers for coming up with this proposal. I don't know if this is going to be a magic bullet. It's likely that there might cause other issues elsewhere, but council officers and our traffic experts have worked through these issues and suggested this is something we can look at doing. We've had further conversations with residents in the last week or so and determined that it would be best to reduce the length as a way of reducing the overall impact, particularly given the divisive nature of the consultation results. Ultimately, these consultation results kind of came to a close 50-50 in the community, so I think the feeling at the moment is that if we were to proceed, that we would try to reduce the length of the trial to reduce the impact of those who are opposed to it and try to evaluate the results a bit sooner so we can get a better answer. Ultimately, this might be a good solution for the area, which would be great, and if it isn't, it's just a trial and we can try something else in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it?
I'd possibly have an interest because I have used Cowderoy Street as a rat run. I'm terribly sorry to the residents of Cowderoy Street, but if that sign's there, I promise I won't drive against the sign. Having made that declaration, as Councillor Niagui says, our officers, in good faith, have made what they think is a recommendation for what they believe will be a positive solution. We've gone to consultation. There's obviously considerable disagreement in the community about what the best solution is. There's no clear direction from the community either way, so I think our officers with their expertise, we should probably take note of what their expertise is and trial it. But as Councillor Niagui has also argued, given the level of disagreement in the community, it's probably better to make it a 6-month trial, and my argument would be the best way of doing this would be to see it, say, from August the 1st to January the 31st, so we could see the impact during peak hour times, then when we get to that off-peak summer period, to see if there's any difference there as well, and that would give additional information to the officers when they're preparing a report back to us. And no doubt we'd be engaging with the community as a result of any recommendations that come out of this. It may well be that this is the silver bullet. It may well be that the data shows that there are other solutions necessary. But unless we get the process started, there will be no change to the rat running through Middle Park. This is a good start, and we'll presumably be back here in 7 or 8 months' time discussing where to go to next.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to that? Councillor Bond?
Yes, I won't be supporting this, as this does not fix the problem. All it does is move the problem to someone else's street. And that's been the issue here for the 8 years or longer that we've been discussing this. Every solution proposed causes a problem for someone else. And I know the St Kilda West Residents Association have been pushing this for a very long time, and I know they're getting frustrated that nothing's being done, but every solution that's proposed moves the problem to someone else's street. Yarra Trams won't support a set of traffic lights at the corner of Park and Fitzroy because it slows down their tram network. When the right-hand turn bans at Canterbury Road, Grey Street and Fitzroy were proposed, all the residents who live the other side of Fitzroy Street on the St Kilda Hill area opposed that because it would prevent them from turning right to get to the bowls club, to get to the shops, to get to schools, all that sort of thing as they come down the hill on Grey Street. So that never proceeded. This solution is all it's going to do is move the traffic to the next street up, and we're going to upset the residents of Middle Park. And I think most of that traffic will turn first at the next intersection, and then they're just going to come straight back down the streets and find their way onto Cowderoy Street anyway. This is not going to shift any traffic off Cowderoy Street. It may shift it from the first block of Cowderoy Street next to Canterbury Road, but they're all going to come back through those side streets and follow their Google Maps and do all that sort of thing, follow the easiest path to get through, because Cowderoy Street has the traffic lights onto Beaconsfield Parade, and that's why all the traffic winds up there. So until a solution's proposed to either relocate or change or introduce more traffic lights on Beaconsfield Parade to do something, all the traffic is going to be directed to those set of traffic lights on Cowderoy Street. So this is not going to propose any solution. It's just going to upset more people. So the next couple of streets will want us to do something about the traffic in their street, as well as all of St Kilda West, which is still going to have that traffic in their areas trying to get onto Beaconsfield Parade. So, I know this is frustrating. There just isn't a solution here that is acceptable that doesn't just shift the problem to someone else's street. And that's why nothing has ever happened here. And I can't support doing that tonight, just shifting the problem next street over, and then in 6 months' time, when we get a petition from those residents wanting to block that turns into their street, we move it to the next one up, which is Language Street, which is likely to have all the problems now. Language Street's 2 up from... Yeah, which is, we're getting emails from the residents who live there about all the crashes and near misses outside their place and the videos, and we're just going to make that situation worse. That intersection doesn't have a set of traffic lights. It doesn't have a roundabout that Cowderoy Street does, and we're just going to create more problems there where they are having actual accidents and near misses. And I fear we're just going to make this situation worse by implementing this. I know the residents of Cowderoy Street don't want to hear this, but it is going to make the situation worse for the entire area if we were to go ahead and do this. And even the survey results showed that Cowderoy Street itself was split 50-50 between whether they wanted it or not. There just wasn't a majority here. So I won't be supporting this. I think it's not a solution. It's just moving the problem.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Do I have anybody else speaking to the item tonight? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do appreciate the concerns of the residents of Cowderoy Street and the traffic in their street. Also the officers for trying to find a solution to what is a very difficult problem. We can see from the traffic counts that the car numbers are a little bit higher than the range that we would normally like. I guess the good news, if there is any, is that the speed limits are within the boundaries of what the speed limit is of 40 k's, so is largely observed there. Unfortunately, the solution proposed here tonight is not a solution I can be supportive of. It just pushes the problem, as Councillor Bond has said, into other streets. That's an obvious outcome of what this proposal does. I don't think as council we should be coming up with solutions that just create problems for other residents, and then it'll be perpetuating, as Councillor Bond has said, that other residents will be coming wanting their street addressed. So, there is a plethora of streets, Fraser, Langridge, McGregor, that all these cars will start diverting to, and I know for a fact because I drive over the Westgate all the time, and Google Maps tells me to go down Cowderoy Street. So it'll just divert to McGregor or one of the other streets that are neighbouring. So I can't support this motion. I do appreciate that doesn't solve the problem for the residents. I understand it's long-standing, but this is just, in my view, not a solution that's going to solve a problem, just create more. And we went to the community. I remember this being brought to Chambers to ask our support to go to consultation. That's what was voted on. This report has come back, and the consultation clearly states that it was voted against 51 to 49. We can round down to calling that 50-50. So the very consultation has told us that it's not supported, yet this motion or recommendation is suggesting we should continue with it. Well, if we've gone to consultation and it doesn't get a clear majority or even a majority, then I think that's also telling information that we should be taking notice of. And as I've said, I won't be able to support this motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I do need to also say that, unfortunately, we are continuing to experience technical difficulties with our live stream tonight. It is being recorded via WebEx, and we will endeavour to upload that online after the meeting. We apologise for the inconvenience for anyone watching the meeting online today. All right, back to the item. Anybody else want to speak to this one? Councillor Sirkov?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to say that I have an interest in this topic, but not a conflict of interest. The reason I have an interest is because I do live in the area where the survey did take place, but I don't feel I've got a conflict of interest because there are over something like 5,200 houses that were surveyed. I had a postcard sent to them. So I feel like I can speak on this topic and give my view. The Cowderoy Street traffic issue has been an ongoing issue, as one of the speakers spoke tonight, for some 8 years or so. The only way forward was to go out for community consultation to look at the data and the feedback from the community. So I thank everybody who has provided that feedback in all the emails. As the report says, it was an evenly split outcome, 49% for, 51% against. Basically a stalemate, and unfortunately with no substantial support from the community for the trial to go ahead. This is obviously a dilemma when some residents want a solution and other residents not wanting the problem to be pushed down to the next street with further consequences. What I did take away from the feedback in this consultation and the emails I received from the residents was that they want, one, a comprehensive and holistic traffic management plan for the whole area, encompassing streets between Kerford Road and Beaconsfield Parade and from Canterbury Road to Fitzroy Street. Two, traffic should be channelled through the main thoroughfares, including Kerford Road and Canterbury Road, and not being redirected, not redirecting vehicles through to surrounding residential streets and causing rat runs. Three, by installing a no right turn will only push this problem onto the next street, because Google Maps algorithms will quickly direct cars back to the traffic lights at the intersection of Cowderoy Street and Beaconsfield Parade, and Park Street itself will also become worse. The issue further down the track is that the council may then need to install a no right turn at the next street down from Fraser Street, and so the whole area could possibly, in the end, become boxed in with traffic with no right-hand traffic turns between 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. My point 4 is that council and residents have also met with regarding an ongoing safety issues on Langridge Street, and notably at the intersection of Langridge Street and Patterson Street, which has been reported as a significantly hazardous street due to many cars not stopping at the stop sign on Langridge Street from both directions and driving through right across Patterson Street. Car crashes have been reported, and only last week residents provided council with extensive footage of frequent near misses between cars and between cars and trams. So this is another hot spot that if we were to have a no right-hand turn into Cowderoy Street, we'd only be redirecting more traffic across this intersection and possibly seeing what I would not like to see as any fatalities. Unfortunately, also at this location, there is not enough room for a roundabout to be installed at the intersection to manage this problem, whereas Cowderoy Street does have a roundabout. Residents have also informed me that any increased traffic at this intersection will make the matter worse. If this motion is voted up, I would like to hear from residents if the situation has made these matters worse not only at this hotspot, but also other hotspots. Residents also suggested a review of traffic flow at the Cowderoy Park Street roundabout to reduce the bank up of traffic. And similarly, a review of the slow movement of traffic at Park Street turning right onto Fitzroy Street, which is severely hampered by three things, and that is the two-way bike lane, which makes it difficult to see bikes coming from both directions, plus right-turning vehicles from Fitzroy Street into Park Street, and this is compounded with trams moving along along Fitzroy Street. Finally, I want to add that the conversation does not stop with Cowderoy Street issue, but should cover traffic management from Kerford Road all the way through to Fitzroy Street, and not a piecewise approach, which will only introduce downstream traffic consequences. So unfortunately I cannot support this motion.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to the item? All right, I will quickly. I know that we need an improved operation at the Fitzroy Street and Canterbury Road. That's part of it, looking at wider than just this one item. Cowderoy, though, is the most direct route. If you get that far down, it's the split to go if you're going along the beach to the Bayside suburbs, or you're going a little bit more inland up to Nepean Highway, St Kilda Road. I'm on the fence about this one. it is a local road, but it is the least local road of that area and a clear connection. I will support, though, tonight, especially because it's a 6 month, because it is only a trial. And if we don't, it seems like the item will keep coming back and then we're not addressing it. Sometimes, though, I know that there could be some pain that comes out of this, but it'll keep the issue at the forefront and push any other further solutions that may be done in the area. If we don't support anything tonight, maybe there will be no solution. However, I'm not confident this is the silver bullet that is going to help. That it goes down to Google Maps telling people to go down that way, which the locals would probably know which route they want to take, or the people who do the commute every day. But even just people who don't know where they're going, Google's telling them to take this route. So that's modern technology for you at the negative, and the impact is on the local residents. So I do note that it was very 50-50. It was probably more clear what yes was and a little less clear what no was. If people knew that it was a 6 month trial, there may be more that we're okay with it. And it's a short time that we will get some feedback that we can work with and select our next moves. Anybody else want to speak to it? Otherwise, we'll take it to the vote. All right, all those in favour? Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That has majority, so that has passed. Thank you. All right, thank you. And I just want to say thank you to Stefan again. I hope you enjoyed your last council meeting. All right, we'll move on to 10.2, the Draft Spatial Economic and Employment Framework. Thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers in relation to this item? Councillor Pearl.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. 2 questions, if I may. The purpose of the document is detailed in the first couple of pages. What's the intention of the document?
Thank you for that question. Through you, Mayor. The intention is that it serves as a framework for future decision-making on employment land, and it will serve as a strategic basis to influence planning controls within the Port Phillip planning scheme, and thereby determine or influence the location, the intensity and the combination of uses on employment land within the City of Port Phillip.
And my second question is, there's a number of directions in the document. If you could only get one of those directions achieved, which one would it be? And I'm asking you to prioritise them. So what do you think is the most important direction? Because there's quite a lot of items there. And my concern is that, not that this isn't a core policy of council, but we have a habit of releasing a lot of policies. Probably in my time on council, I wouldn't say hundreds, but probably more than 100, I would say. And each one of them have like this 4, 5, 6 directions with then sub-points under them. And a lot of the time they get lost. So if you have, one item that was the most important, the most pressing, which one would that be?
Thank you for that particular question. Through you, Mayor. Rather than prioritise, I'd like to also, I think it's important to note that this works in complementary to existing strategies that Council have already adopted, and so it's working hand in glove and looking at the planning framework to support those other strategies as well. So, for example, Council is preparing a housing strategy, and this gives Council a chance to talk about and manage employment and housing at the same time. How is that going to occur within the City of Port Phillip? Equally, it's working hand in glove with the Creative and Prosperous Cities strategy, which is being put forward. So there is a direction around innovation and specialisation. So it is, rather than prioritising them, I think there's a recognition that it is supporting existing strategies.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, do I have a move of this item or another item? Thank you, Councillor Pearl. And someone to second? Councillor Nyagui. Councillor Pearl, would you like to speak to the item? You'll reserve, that's fine. Councillor Nyagui, would you like to speak to it?
I'll waive.
Pardon? No, you don't need to. Anybody else want to speak to the item? If not, back to you, Councillor Pearl.
Thank you very much. My most used quote in on my time on the City of Port Phillip is from 1943, the great Winston Churchill, who said, "We shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us." And part of this policy is part of that, because ultimately if we get this right and we focus on it, it will shape employment trends in our city for many, many generations to come. And we shouldn't underestimate the impact that has. So this is an important policy document. There are some things in the document that I think is obviously going out for, well, feedback/consultation, albeit not as formal as what we'd normally do, but it is going out for feedback. There's a couple of things that I think perhaps we don't focus on strongly enough within the document, which I'd be interested to see if this comes through in the feedback. Namely, there's 3 key advantages to the City of Port Phillip's location, is one obviously, but as a subset to that is the strategic importance of the Westgate Freeway, which only is referred to in one very small mention here. 1.47 million cars and trucks go past the city through that piece of infrastructure every week. It's a huge competitive advantage of our city versus others. There aren't many cities that have direct access and a nexus between the east and the west of Melbourne, and the employment trends and social trends in Melbourne historically and probably will continue to move east-west, west-east. And we're sitting right in the middle of that, which is a key strategic advantage for our city. The proximity, obviously, to the CBD, the port and the airport is obviously very, very key and important, and that isn't necessarily talked about here as much, because I think the land zoning actually has a key component to that also. And obviously, a big part of this is public transport, which is mentioned throughout, particularly Anzac Station, and also our schools, I think, is a key competitive advantage also, and perhaps something that should be looked at in terms of, can we get schools used as employment zones. It's interesting to note only 1 in 5 workers in the City of Port Phillip, well, less than 1 in 5 workers in the City of Port Phillip live here, and I think 1 in 16 workers come from Wyndham. So can we attract more workers using existing transport infrastructure, including the Westgate Freeway, to bring workers in and educate their children within the city? I would note that a number of people, even at the City of Port Phillip, staff used to educate their children at the primary school next door, albeit they didn't live in the municipality because they were able to when that wasn't geographically zoned. So can we use our education facilities through a zoning point of view to be a key competitive advantage and a differentiator to other cities in inner city Melbourne? So it's worth the cost of transport into the city to get people working and living, and spending their money here whilst their children are at school during the day. I think based on the world that we currently live in, those sorts of advantages are the things we need to look for, because we need to provide more reasons for people to come and work in the city. The other component is Fisherman's Bend. I've said this before, but I think there is a case for the state government to put Fisherman's Bend under a single municipal government regime, but that's probably a discussion for a different day. But in a world where most people are working in a more agile way, this strategy goes some way, I think, in terms of addressing some of the ways that the changes of working will have in the future. We shouldn't underestimate the size of our economic benefit for our city. The total economic output of our city last year, 2022, is estimated about $28 billion, which is, I think, the 3rd largest municipality in Victoria. That's very large in terms of non-capital, well, what you take out Geelong and the City of Melbourne, obviously. Of the directions here, there's also some probably areas that I think we could necessarily narrow down, but as I said before, I think we have a habit of coming out necessarily with a number of directions, a number of sub-points, and I understand they're intertwined with other policies. But there is a risk to that we water it down, and we, as policy gets implemented as the years go by, we don't actually implement enough of the policy to have a significant impact. So I would encourage officers, potentially based on the feedback, is can we narrow the directions down if they are actually covered off in other policies, and focus on the 80-20. Like usually 20% of the initiatives will account for 80% of the benefit of the policy. So let's bring those 20% of the initiatives to the forefront and make sure we deliver those first and foremost. A lot of things are like here in terms of particularly, I think it's important to note Direction 2, albeit I think it's probably a bit too focused, not necessarily focused too much on the arts and retail, but there's perhaps could be more focus also on the industrial and more traditional working class industries also. But focusing on niche is a good place to win. So thank you to the officers for putting this together. The reason I've talked about it for so long is I want you to understand that the council group has discussed it, we've reviewed it, and we consider it a very important document for the future of our city, and we don't underestimate that, and we're looking forward to the next version coming through. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and take that one to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, next is 11.1, the EcoCentre redevelopment update. Do we have any questions for the officers in relation to the report? I see none. Do I have a mover for this or something else? Councillor Martin, second Councillor Niagui. Councillor Martin, go ahead and speak to it if you'd like.
Some of us have been waiting a long, long time to see the EcoCentre developments kick off. And Mayor, it was wonderful to see you at the turning of the first sod with your shovel a couple of weeks ago. Very, very timely for a number of reasons. We've declared a climate emergency here in the city of Port Phillip. We're in the process of developing a climate emergency action plan, and I believe the EcoCentre is probably the organisation that we should be working closely with as we develop and implement that climate emergency action plan, because they have a range of resources there. And once their new facilities come on board, they'll be able to provide additional support to the council. So we've funded them quite significantly. We've provided a wonderful facility, and I can't wait to see us working in partnership with them as they help us drive our climate emergency action plan. But yeah, been a long time coming. Many councillors before me have played a vital role in getting the funding and getting this process up and running, so I can take probably no credit for the process. I think it's great that we're there. Hope that we'll kickstart the process, and we look forward, Mayor, to seeing either you or the next Mayor cutting the ribbon to open the EcoCentre rather than just turning the first sod.
Thank you. Councillor Niagui.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd echo Councillor Martin's remarks. This is such an exciting project. The EcoCentre is one of those kind of entities in our city that are often misunderstood, but I see them as, they've got an incredible legacy over the last 20 or 30 years in our city and well beyond, but I think they are also a crucial linchpin to us delivering on our climate emergency declaration and leaving this city in a better place than we found it. So all I can say is thank you to them for their work. I'm really excited to see this project come to completion. And I also want to thank the State Labor Government, who've also contributed 50% of the funding for this. This is such an exciting project, and it's so exciting to see all these different groups come together to deliver for our city.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking to the item? If not, I will. I love a building project, and this one's a pretty special one, having a lot of accolades around the sustainability of it. So pretty lucky to have it. 50% come from the Victorian Government and 50% from the ratepayers. So I'd like to thank both. It was a pleasure to do the groundbreaking ceremony with Minister Stitt coming down and Nina Taylor. So thank you to them. Best wishes for the construction. It's a difficult time to build, but I think we've got a good team behind it, and it'll be great to go to the opening. Thank you. All right, let's take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Two more items. Now on to 13.1, Councillor Expenses Monthly Reporting, December 2022 and January, February, March 2023. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers in relation to this report? If not, do I have someone to move this? Councillor Martin, Councillor Pearl second. Councillor Martin, do you need to speak to it? No. Councillor Pearl? No. Anybody else? No. If not, we'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, final one of the reports. This is 13.2, Financial Update, Third Quarter Review, 2022 to 23, Financial Review. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers in relation to this report? If not, I'm looking for a mover. It's me. I'm going to move something. I'm going to move an alternative motion, which which I hope you guys have a copy of. I'd like to move an additional item 3.3, agrees to waive up to $25,000 of street occupancy permits. So I can read closer. Permit fees to be incurred by the National Theatre for the duration of their front awning building upgrade works. Would anybody like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Baxter.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest in relation to item point 3.3 there, and I'll remove myself from the chamber for the whole of this thing, whole of this item rather. The conflict of interest relates to a close association with two of the current board members of the National Theatre. Therefore, I will remove myself from your decision this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Pearl. We'll let you go. Thank you. All right. Okay. As a mover, I'll start. Obviously, we've had a good surplus, and there's positive information in this in general for people to see where we're at. There's an additional item that's been recommended that's for getting kids right now who do not have the citizenship or anything that qualifies for the childcare rebate to be able to utilise our services. So that's baked in. And then my additional item here comes from having a tour of the National Theatre last week and knowing that they have critical works coming up to their awning at the front of their property. They have secured funding, but there is a council fee for occupying the permit, a permit to occupy the, what do we say? Yep, occupation permit, that's the words. And this is our opportunity to waive that for this not-for-profit so that we can see this project go forward and be a little bit more affordable, as well as the benefit that will be when it's done. Will look really good in the streetscape there. I hope that you will support this. Councillor Baxter?
Yeah, so we'll just want to point out that it's great that we have the capacity to be able to assist organisations like this with this sort of work. It's not even direct funding. It's about just working closely with a national institution in our municipality to get an outcome that is going to be beneficial, really, to the whole area.
Right. Yes, Acting CEO.
Through you, Mayor, do you mind if I ask Council CFO a question about?
Yes, please.
Peter Liu, can you confirm whether if 3.3 does get up, that will require the surplus figure in 3.2 to be adjusted?
Through you, Mayor, I think given that we're foregoing a revenue source that potentially we may not have been budgeted for in this instance, I think is sufficient.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, anybody else want to speak to the item? Councillor Martin.
I'll start off by rehashing what I said 2 weeks ago. Congratulations to our Chief Financial Officer, ELT, and to the good decisions of this council and previous councils that we are in such a good financial position, although I do note that some of it is due to a windfall that we weren't expecting. I also note that there are some potential hurdles when you look at the budget details. There are a number of projects that we've deferred. That money's earning its interest, which is a wonderful thing. However, it's possible in years to come when those projects come on stream that the costs will have increased significantly, probably at a significantly greater rate than inflation. So we need to be aware that despite what appears to be a good financial position, there are a number of major projects that could easily use up some of the surplus that we've accumulated. However, having said that, to those of you who are listening and following this on the live stream, if it's working and if the live stream isn't working, if you're watching on the replay, in the budget consultation process, a number of you have approached a variety of councils at pop-ups and phone calls and meeting in the street with ideas and proposals. Don't be scared to put your proposals in. But don't just come to us and say, we'd like you to spend a whole lot of money and do something, and you need to be very, very specific and cost it out. And if it's something reasonable, we do have some funds where we'd be able to consider your suggestions, and maybe, just maybe, we may be in a position to actually vote some of them up. The other thing I'd like to flag, and I mentioned it when I spoke to the previous debate, to me one of the biggest actions that's going to be happening in the next 12 months is firstly the completion of and then the beginning of the implementation of our Climate Emergency Action Plan, and the review and then the implication of the new revised Act and Adapt. And I would not be surprised if when that document comes through, it may include some, there may be the potential for some additional council expenses there, and it may well be that as we come either through this budget process or through the next quarterly review process, we might like to find some, and hopefully not a great amount of money, but some additional amount of money to support any revisions that occur in Act and Adapt and any new council initiatives that arrive out of the Climate Emergency Action Plan. But only to support the alternative motion. Thank you, Mayor, for adding that extra money on. Thank you, officers, for the addition that you've made. It's great that we're in a position to be able to agree to these additional expenditure items. Fantastic.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to the item? Otherwise, let's take it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. And I guess maybe I say it's carried. Thank you. All right. That's the end of the presentation reports. Councillor Pearl, come back in. Thank you. We'll move on to notice of motions. Councillors, we have no notice of motions tonight. We'll move on to reports by councillor delegates. All right. I see that we do. Can we keep it to a concise one, please? Thank you, Councillor Martin.
The Bubup Woolmanjeka Family and Children's Centre has declared 2 initial life members. The centre's been going for only 11 years, and its first 2 life members are 2 stalwarts of their board, Glenn Staunton, who may be known to some of you, and Bernadine Voss, who should be known to all of you. And I'd particularly like to acknowledge Bernadine's work on that board, where she was initially a council delegate to the board. Even while she was mayor, she stayed as a council delegate to the board, stayed on as secretary, and stepped down from the committee after 11 years' service at the annual meeting last month. And I think that's an amazing effort by our former council colleague and former mayor, and I know that we'll be working with her in a range of other areas, but fantastic that she's a life member of the Bubup Woolmanjeka Family and Children's Centre.
Thank you. Any other delegate reports? If not, we'll move on. Urgent business. Councillors, do we have any items of urgent business? I see none. We'll keep going to confidential matters. Councillors, we have no confidential reports listed on the agenda. Therefore, being no further business, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.